Today, we see the emergence of a new media, taking its cue from what social theorist Stephen Johnson calls the peer network. This new media harnesses the power from the decentralization of the internet to create nimble organizations that are based on collaborative networks outside both the marketplace and the state. With its emphasis on crowdsourcing, this new media embraces the tools of social media, digital editing, and the speed of broadband to communicate messages and ideas that have been traditionally overlooked by the corporate mainstream media. Changing the notion of community as a specific physical locale, new media embraces the idea of a community as a place of shared ideas and outlooks with an organizing principle of no group or single individual in charge. From this, it places itself in the vanguard of a new democracy, where participation is of utmost importance. No longer do we passively receive the news, we make the news. On Open Culture, I've explored various individuals who have embraced new media in its various forms. From legendary punk artist Maxine Rubin, who helped the do-it-yourself movement begin, and making your own media, to the journalist socialist critic Chris Hedges, who has used the new media to give voice to those who have been left voiceless by the system, I've consistently tried to portray examples of this new media. On today's show, I had the great honor to be the guest of Maxine Rubin, who's the host and the producer of The Many Shades of Green, an innovative community radio show broadcast on the B-Box network in Brooklyn. Maxine, who has many years of broadcast experience and community activism, has utilized the new media to great effect to explore the issues of environmentalism and how to make our world more green and sustainable. What follows is her interview with me. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, I'm Maxine Rubin, and this is The Many Shades of Green, our program about environmental sustainability and social issues here on B-Box Radio in Dumbo, Brooklyn, and on the net at bboxradio.com. The Many Shades of Green goes into topics that affect the environment in Brooklyn and beyond, as we move to raise social awareness via culture and politics, music, and the arts. There are many variations or shades of environmental consciousness which affect what actions we take to protect the planet. Everyone has a shade of green that connects them to the natural earth. Our guest this week of The Many Shades of Green is Robert Bean, a television producer and host of Video Poem. He's also a web designer who uses technology and the spoken word to help reconnect people with the landscape and deconstruct corporate imagery which exploits nature for its own end. So welcome to the show. Welcome to Dumbo. How are you?
I'm great, Maxine. Glad I found the place under the bridge.
Ah, well, the bridge will get you here because we're under the bridge.
Yes.
So you have to go
Over that river.
over the river and through the...
Makes you feel like Walt Whitman,
Walt.
sort of Hart Street, Stephen Crane.
He's all sorts of street names here too that are interesting to look at. But there's also Henry Street in there. Oh, Henry. So you're here, and I know you're also a poet. I know you recite poetry. You work with artists, and you also do this video poem show. But what particular defining life moment sort of led you to the path as a poet, the activist, the producer?
Well, you know what it was like when I was growing up, which is kind of like in the 70s. It's like the tail end of that new left, I guess you would call it, with the hippies, it's questioning authority. And I never kind of left that mindset and stuff. So
That's what happened? The mindset of the late 70s?
well, what it was is like we kept thinking, hoping that this kind of 60s mentality would return, and then it became Reagan, so we figured, okay, we'll live through this, and it's just going to get better, and it just kept getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's a defining moment. It really could be just because I wasn't a popular kid and had to go out for hikes and found more peace there.
Yeah, that's
You know what I mean?
that-
Like artists tend to be the rebel type.
Artists are all rebel types and also progressive types and also sort of one with the planet. So it doesn't surprise me that going hiking...
But I will say one thing about that. It was funny. Once I had stopped trying to fit in, I found other people not trying to fit in, and all of a sudden you had this whole other group of great friends.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time I was playing a lot of guitar, poetry, but then there'd be artists. Everyone had something cool to do. Like the new group I got into, you had to be about something.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just about being popular or and stuff like that, and it just seemed like more fun.
Well, definitely artists, I think, on the average, they're more in tune and they have, much more to get, creativity is something that they try to quash these days. It's teach by the book, teach to the test.
Test scores.
And when you do that, you a whole group of really creative kids who need to be developed they're being quashed. And I remember hearing this firsthand from teachers. Get off your soapbox. And it's like, if you're not on a soapbox and doing something, then why?
You know what it is,
how can a teacher say that? Is what I was wondering.
You know what it is too, is like, are you going to be a spectator or a participant? And I always wanted to be a participant in my own life. Or feel, and just get into like some of my work, we can bring up like a lot of American culture. It makes it really easy for you to be a spectator. Go to the football game,
right.
Watch American Idol.
Right.
Sit on the couch, and let other people make decisions for you. And like I'm saying, like how the way I was raised, which is questioning, and learned how to read and write. Was a history major. We used to call it pre-unemployment, but it did teach me how to think, which maybe is a dangerous thing. I don't know. But that would lead me into where I'm at these days. It's the community activism and using kind of like the new media, the digital tools.
Right. So that would go with the quote I sort of read on one of the website, and I paraphrase this, and you said, "I make things happen, that's who I am. I don't live in a box, and I hope you don't either. It's why a simple definition does not define me. I can create solutions for problems people bring to me." And so, can you sort of explain how that fits in? You're not in the box, although now we're sort of in
the B-box.
B-box.
How ironic.
So that fits, how ironic.
That's when Brooklyn irony is huge.
Right, it's true. Yeah, the hipsters. I'm an old hipster. But anyway, so how does that relate, to the environment that surrounds you and that out of the box thought process?
Right. So I didn't want to be like in the box. I just didn't want to like have one size fits all. And like who I am, I was trying to articulate. I make things happen. In other words, so in terms of, let's say, my digital activism, connecting people, like for instance meeting you,
right.
and then establishing a relationship with you and coming down, and now I'm being interviewed on your show, but
right.
I'm also taping this show, and you're
right.
going to be on my show.
Wow. See, that's the new media, ladies and gentlemen. We can do things now that we have not been able to do.
Which is very interesting. Like, I don't know if you heard of Stephen Johnson, but he just came up with this great book, and he's talking about like the power of the decentralization, like crowdsourcing. Are you familiar with that?
Crowdsourcing, yes.
So he was saying, let's take those ideas, like like the idea behind Kickstarter. Let's take them to like society, progressive. For instance, like he had a great idea for politics. Politicians will no longer raise the money; they'll put their candidacy up, like say on a Kickstarter. If someone makes the bar, then they're in. So it's harvesting that. In his book, he's harvesting all that power because of the internet and stuff. You can get all this like micro decisions coming in.
Right. Definitely. I mean, that was one thing I was thinking about when I was trying to talk and make a good conversation here. And so my question was, how important is social media in getting out the issues of the environment and social justice? So Facebook and Twitter are changing things, right? And then you had the Occupy movement, which was spurred by that. I mean, so
very much. I don't think you would have got all those people down in Scotty Park initially, because at first it was just an ad buster thing, and they put an ad in that magazine. It was just like a handful of people, and they got it out. What was interesting about that is that the old kind of left protest model really wasn't working, and it had brought in a bunch of people more savvy with the, let's say, the new media and stuff, and they led to like that innovative technique.
Right.
Instead of it's still probably be going if our president hadn't shut it down, but that's a whole other topic for another show.
Okay.
But to get back now, since your show's relating about green and ecology, so I found what led me into embracing these tools is I found like the mainstream media was like overlooking these environmental issues. I mean climate change, other topics, because I was getting keyed in and I was hearing, tech savvy, hearing all this like Amy Goodman and all this other story that you would never hit. Like I'd go visit my parents, I'd be hearing Amy Goodman, and I'd go in and then I'd hear the Fox version. And,
Right, that's a scary version.
And that's an easy target.
Right, well, yeah, because, well, if you Fox, I can't even explain. I mean, at this point.
But even though on the so-called MSNBC, there's
Right.
still like a lock, like, you know, get some of Christian Matthews, okay, he's more liberal, but he's still locked into like a Washington consensus. Still in the thing, when they say something like, oh, Leon Panetta was a great Secretary of Defense,
Yeah.
that's in other words, that's just a little shorthand for them.
Right.
It's not really saying who they are.
Well, because you'll never know who they are. And even if you go to, you know, I mean, I'm a fan of Rachel Maddow, but
She's a little bit better, but
she's
still.
a little better, but there's still something missing about mainstream media, and we'll talk about that a little bit after the break.
Good. Thank you. Actually, I'm gonna go back. Luxurious spaces for women.
I've been in time, it feels like.
There you go.
We'll be done in like 15.
Yeah, I'll probably be down for that.
Okay, cool. Bye-bye.
Hi, we're back. Here with Dean, the producer. It's a show called Video Poems. There's a great work on the web. And we're talking about the mainstream media not doing its job. It's limited deep reporting. It relies more on snippets and fluff and stuff that's not really looked into in depth. So how are you giving a voice to the voiceless and those overlooked by mainstream media? What are you doing to make that happen?
There are many different things. So as a web designer, I've made it like very easy for someone who needs to get a website out for their vision. I do work with a lot of artists, doing some work with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you set that up and you instruct them in it on a basic level, and all of a sudden now they have a voice out in that World Wide Web. Because a lot of times with people, they're going to have a great idea, but they never get around to it because they think it's got to be like this heavy-duty thing. And weeks go by, months go by. Sometimes I know people years go by, and they still have that great idea, but they haven't taken that step. So I try to encourage people, just do it. Start you off simple. The great thing with what I use and like WordPress and stuff, but there's others like Joomla and Drupal, you can always expand. So you start off with like a really solid kernel, and then you can get elaborate. But giving the voice to the voiceless in that, so you're empowering them right there on the website. And then in terms of my own media, I like to cover depending whether it's politics or health, I try to present issues and topics and personalities that are just overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
Voice to the voiceless.
Right, people don't know certain things.
I just want to say, when I didn't have these tools when I was growing up, like we really were isolated, and when alternative rock, that came out of when I was like a teenager in my early 20s, because we were alternative, meaning that there was nobody like us, and you didn't have blogs, you didn't have the internet. We used to dream of something like it, we didn't know what it called that. And for me, when it finally came, it wasn't like, oh well, I'm too old for this. I'm like, wow, I can't believe we have this. And a lot of you will find too, with this proliferation of voices too, there's so much information that people will drown you out. But I found like if you're passionate about your subject and you stick with it, you'll find your core audience.
Right, so you can go out there and check if you are very deep into the environment, you can go in and do Google searches and find organizations of people just talking, about various sundry parts of,
Well, for me, like Google, that was it, finding people, and also like even better, like finding how to contact them or with the organizations. It's very important when you're doing media, so I'm sure you know, like finding the press contact.
Right.
And sometimes, like, I'll even rate sites that blows me away when they, on their site, they make it really hard to find the person. So it shows to me like they're not really doing their job,
Right.
or they're not really with it, and you can see it. What's great, for instance, also like with the younger generation, they're used to this. Like now when I'm working with the younger PR assistants, it's like no problem. You contact him, you give him a link to your work. Okay, this guy's for real. Because lots of people proposers and they can see your work,
Right,
and then
right.
bam, all of a sudden like you're right in,
Right.
which is a really dynamic thing.
Right, I know that social media, is definitely helping different causes move and getting greater visibility. And, it seems that one of the topics that the mainstream is not really covering is the environment and global warming. I mean, it took, Bloomberg, it took Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy to get Bloomberg to endorse Obama because of his, stance on the environment. Yet in the presidential elections, I mean,
They mentioned it once in the
campaign,
debates.
it was hardly mentioned. So that's a case where mainstream media, they completely dropped the ball, and the politicians dropped the ball, and now we just got a report that in the Times 2012 was the hottest.
Yeah, I just saw
Army
that
record.
today.
It was 1 degree higher than in 1998. Now, if that keeps happening, we are in deep, deep trouble. I mean, yes, there's weather, yes, there are cycles, but you can't tell me that we have not, by that virtue of that statement by itself, that we are part of causing this global.
Well, you had a great guest on your show, and you also did like a short video with Reverend Billy.
Uh-huh.
And first of all, there's a guy you never see on mainstream media, but
Right.
I watched the show that you produced,
Mm-hmm.
and how he pointed out that even when you get these storms, they put them into these Hollywood narrative arcs. Like they don't show the whole picture. Like they show them so that's going to be like a news package that's going to, what they think is going to sell to that, middle of the road demographic, if I could just label it that way. But do you know what I'm talking about?
Because it comes out in press releases. I had a guest, Carolina from Portside, and she, is a journalist, and in speaking with her, it's just remarkable that what's coming out in the news is basically being sent through PR releases,
It is.
and they're just connecting the dots. So there's nothing in depth unless you go on the web and you go seek out, places like that, and that's where the voices are being heard. And so that's pretty, important these days, and we'll have to just keep up with the media. Now you do something called Video Poem, a show, and what is that about? And then can you bring us into some poems with that?
Well, it's a freewheeling thing. So, I mean, it's, covers many things. Sometimes it's literally like a video poem. So where that came from originally was I was more just a poet with the words. But I started to realize people don't read as much. So I wanted to reach people more. And with the advent of the digital tools, I started mixing imagery of the poems, the words. So a friend of mine said, why don't you call it a video poem? And it kind of stuck, and like people kind of liked it because I didn't know. I don't care if they think I'm weird. I mean, I'm already twisted enough, but like, how is this going to go?
You twisted, come on.
How is this going to go over? So it became the video poem, and then, but I'd also, have the journalistic side.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's keeping like the concept of the video poem, in other words, like how so much of our society now is image and how it just jumps around, because the tagline of the video poem is idea into motion.
Idea into motion. And a lot of poetry is not overly mainstream. I mean, you can read poems.
Hardly at all.
So talk about giving a voice to something that's not being mainstream. Poetry, spoken word, things like that are important. And so, do you have any poem or two you can?
I got some words to spin on.
Can you spin some words now? That would be awesome.
Okay, this is now like kind of like a poetry type of novel, and maybe another so we can talk about that. So that I'll just put some words. And I try to pick stuff that would be related to the environment.
Okay.
My themes are the self and the alienated from the environment, and that kind of destruction, and what that does to the your inner self. So there's the connection. Remember to remember. It's night in the qua, time is suspended. Words flash real, words become definitions. Words remove you from the nature of the environment. But let's talk about juxtaposition. Let's bring yourself back to it all. I live in the belly of the beast, frothing, mad, insane, writing these words. But now, dear, running out of those woods, and the blur of the headlights and the fog swirling over the streets, and the hallucinations are real, just like Dylan sang here back in the environment. Money makers glory in their signs down by the train station, signs and symbols, but let's deconstruct them. How wrong was I? After the crash, after the subprime market, I knew they were up to no good. I couldn't quite figure it. I was not on the inside, but I could feel it, because I was up in the nature, coming from the real, and now unspoken, unfrozen in the movie. So I sucked down in Winston, and it tastes so good. Now these selling ships, they don't have boundaries. Selling ships, they have no friends. My life has been a series of snapshots and epiphanies, seeking aesthetic experiences, surfing these frequencies, sometimes digital, sometimes psychic, dialed into the big picture, chronicling breakdown of communication and what that means, the isolation, the alienation, pain, salvation gained through expression, produced through the craft of art, the tape plays on. Yeah, and sometimes I want to say to you, my poems are like pretexts. Sometimes because like really spontaneous spoken report. It's like back in the day before the blogs that we just had nothing to do. We'd just sit around and rap poems.
Rap poems and rap, and it used to be something called time museum. Things used to write down. You used to write things. Okay, let's do another one.
Okay. Here's another one, kind of like about the South, being out in the woods, alienated.
Alienated in the woods.
Maxine might like some of the imagery in this. It's from the town that we're from.
Okay, cool.
Bell School, graffiti bridge team. Where do we find our spaces of silence? What are the rules and atmosphere of its condition? Who gets to play? I'm living in the cracks of reality asking these questions that the mainstream does not ask. But in the quad or on the Phelps Way, the walls and being melt away, I glide with nature, back to the ecology of being. I seek out places hidden from the common view where I can watch, a silent voyeur detached from the public movie, which has been co-opted by the corporations. I'm down and out in the quad, but I'm the richest homeless man in America, out of focus, exploring the blur, where the excitement happens, the site of action. The graffiti bridge team works the corner. Everyone has their own Zen view, especially in my movie. We want you to participate. We want you to join the circle. Different Starbucks chicks drift in and out, each with a particular angle. They're sweet and cuddly and innocent, coming down there from the Greeley School, the good education. Will they be taught by their teachers to critique the social structure? Who knows? It's not for me to say. They've got a long way to go. A long way to go.
Well, at this point, one quick last question. Who is Tyler Sid?
Okay, so
And why?
Tyler Sid's my alter ego from the novel I was writing. And he's the whole character, and that was just a parody of like an action formula movie.
Okay.
So how it got into the Facebook thing was, Facebook was kind of a joke for adults. I mean, it was a kiddie thing, so
Right.
I just winged it up.
College.
I just put it up Tyler Sid Facebook, and then all of a sudden, like, Facebook came to adults, or like, even like old adults, and like, it just took off. And before I could stop it and get my real name in there, it was just, and then everyone kind of dug it anyway, and it was like kind of cool. If I'm ever gonna go back and get a straight job, they can, if you Google my real name, nothing bad comes up. It's all like I'm Tyler Sid.
I love it. So how would they get to Tyler Sid? What's your Facebook? It's like just Tyler Sid.
Tyler Sid.
Just Tyler Sid. So if you're interested in check it out.
But there's also a video poem fan page for that, and then go to videopoem.tv.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So.
Videopoem.tv and
if you see me on the street, I just go by the name Bob.
Hey Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, and the website once more?
Videopoem.tv, and there's links to my other sites, and there's an email contact and write in, so very easy to reach me. I mean, despite that drone over the head, so I've just been ignoring that. So.
Yeah. I've gotten used to it. It takes time. Hey, I'm a Brooklyn kid, and I live not far from you now.
Henry Miller rules.
Henry Miller. God,
The 14th Ward.
I lived, lived in high school. Go Rail Splitters. We had a lot of great people in that school. So, anyway, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to run into you and hang out and all that.
And I know we'll be doing more stuff, so thanks so much. So you've been talking with Robert Dean, a lifelong community activist who uses new technology to promote more progressive agenda, which includes environmental and social justice issues. Bob's words, I make things happen, that's who I am. Live in a box. I hope you don't either. And it's why a simple definition does not define me. I create solutions, problems. People bring problems to me so I can solve them. It's why I exist outside the box, but for today, he is in the box. He's in the B box. So thanks for joining us. And on the Many Shades of Green, our program about environmental sustainability, culture and the arts, and community here on B-Box Radio in Dumbo, Brooklyn, and on the net at bboxradio.com. Listen to the show on your laptop, tablet, desktop, or smartphone. Visit us on Facebook and send us a tweet at TM Shades of Green. Come visit us at the B-Box and be a part of live radio. I'm Maxine Rubin. Please join us again.